Good morning, class 10 students. I welcome you all on this online platform provided by Jagriti Classes. Today we are going to do our chapter 6 that we were doing from previous video lectures. Okay, so this video is again for class 10th. And we'll continue with our chapter 6, that is life processes. So in the last class or in the previous video, we have discussed about respiration, and that I have told you first we have done difference between breathing and respiration. Then I told you in detail what do you understand by the term breathing, which processes come under this term of breathing, okay? And then we saw that inhalation and exhalation and passage of air in humans. Then we started respiration, which was cellular respiration. We saw respiration is also of two kinds, aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic, which takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic, which takes place in the absence of oxygen. Then we saw the mechanism of respiration, that is, respiration is the breakdown of complex material into simpler forms. But where does this breakdown occur? How this breakdown occurs? What are your complex materials which break down into which kind of simpler materials? Everything we saw in our unit, okay, in the previous lesson. Now some terms which are left. So we'll be discussing now some small concepts. That is, first we'll be discussing some terms which is residual volume. And then these all are again related to respiration and breathing. And then we'll be completing every point about respiration and breathing today. And then we'll move on to the next life process, that is transportation. And we'll be starting transportation in humans as well as in plants. Transportation in humans means the blood circulation, how circulation occurs, what do you mean by blood pressure, how does the heart looks like, everything we'll do. Then we'll move on to transportation in plants. You know, plants also need transportation. Transportation of what? Food and water. And if you remember your class 9 studies, then you have done there in chapter 6 tissues that transportation in plants is done with the help of two tissues which are called vascular bundles. Can you name the two tissues which comprise a vascular bundle? Great. These two tissues are xylem and phloem. So phloem is responsible for transport of food. We'll see how phloem transport foods, and then we'll see xylem, which is responsible for transport of water and minerals. So let's complete respiration today and then move on to transportation. So for respiration, we have some concepts and terms left. First one comes your residual volume. So what do you mean by this term residual volume? Now think about breathing again for understanding this. We said in breathing, we do inhalation, that is intake the air, and then we do exhalation. If you do a very forceful exhalation, that is with all the strength you have, you exhale the air out of your body or out of the lungs, then also you will not be able to empty out your lungs, okay? It means either you apply any strength of force, you do a forceful exhalation, but after that forceful exhalation also some air would be still left inside the lungs or inside your body, and this air, the quantity of air which is left inside the body even after forceful exhalation is called residual volume. So I hope you have now got what do you mean by the term residual volume. Why this air is still present? We have applied our maximum force to expel out all the air. But why do we still need some air to be present inside the lungs? Because if no air would be present, then your lungs would collapse. So because this is of very importance, okay? It has immense importance, residual volume. So now I'll write it down. Residual volume, it is the volume of air, okay? You can say quantity, and quantity of air which we are measuring is in the terms of volume itself. So it is the quantity or volume of air present inside the lungs even after forceful exhalation. Exhalation is also known as expiration. Okay, the process is same. These are the two common terms used for the process when you release out the air, and residual volume is that quantity of air which would be left in your lungs even after forceful exhalation, which exhalation is also called expiration. And in the similar way, inhalation, which we discussed, that is taking in the air, it is also called inspiration. Okay, yes, same as the inspiration and motivation which you get. So it is called as inhalation is known as inspiration. So this was one term which we didn't discuss. So I made it clear now. Residual volume, what do you understand by this term and why it is important? Okay, I have told its significance. Then the next is comparing the process of respiration in plants and animals. We say that compared to plants, animals have quite complex organization or complex body structure, whereas these plants, they have simpler body structure. How we can say that plants have a simpler body structure and animals have complex body structure? Let's see that plants cannot move. Okay, they are attached to the ground or the place wherever we grow them. So they cannot move. Then they do not perform because they cannot move, they just stand on their position, and they also do not perform other activities which are done by animals. Animals move, then animals, the kids, humans, they play around, they walk, jog, everything, many activities from the starting of the day till the end we do. But compared to the plants, they can't move and they do not perform as much activities as animals. So they perform less activities. And because they perform less activities in comparison to animals, I am saying, and these activities we are referring to the activities which involve movements. In turn, their energy requirement is less. Okay, so this was our important term. I can write it directly also that in plants energy requirement is less, but I want you to clear your concepts why we are writing that, and they require less energy. They are doing their work, they are doing respiration, photosynthesis, everything. And yes, plants do respiration also. Okay, this is also a confusion in students. Ki plants only do the process of photosynthesis. No, they also perform respiration. We'll see in this section only. See, so first we are saying that in plants, they have a simpler body structure because they are attached to the ground and their energy requirement is less. Now I am writing it directly here that energy requirement of animals is more. You can write that because animals can move and because they perform large amount of activities including movement. So because of these two reasons, we say that their energy requirement is very high. And because, so this is the first reason you should know, energy requirement of plants is lower compared to energy required by animals. Now the next is what? We have that in plants you have a simple body structure. That means plants are composed, yes, they are multicellular, they have tissue and organ level of organization or tissue level of organization. But animals have a very complex body structure because they have organ system level of organization, which is not very generally observed in plants. So first one is that they have complex level of organization, which means they have complex body structure in simple language. And in plants, you have various cells which are directly in contact with the air. So in plants, you can say that you have large spaces between the cells present in the plant's body. So, and maximum number of cells are in contact with environment directly. You can also make a conclusion, this conclusion, presence of spaces between the cells. As you can see that in a plant cell, whole amount or volume of plant cell is occupied by presence of vacuoles. Vacuoles are the empty spaces. So you can say that in each plant cell, 90% of the space, let's suppose this is your plant cell, then 90% of the space will be occupied by vacuole. Okay, compared to animal cells have a very less diameter of vacuole, or vacuoles are even absent in some of the cells of animals. So because these cells have very large spaces between them also and inside them also, this makes maximum number of cells to have direct contact with the environment, and hence because of these 2 points, that is their energy requirement is less and they are in direct contact with the environment. In plants, the process of respiration is fulfilled using diffusion process. So in plants, diffusion process alone can support the process, that is respiration process, which we require for getting energy. You know, respiration is responsible for production of energy. So because of these 2 main reasons, you say that in plants, this diffusion process is alone enough to support the plant with the required amount of energy. But in animals, you have a complex body structure, you have large requirements of energy because of their activities, and then you can say that every cell of animal is not in direct contact with the environment. Okay, so you can write that cells aren't in direct contact with the environment compared to the cells of plants. Cells are not in direct contact with the environment. So because of these 3 reasons, complex structure, not in direct contact, and high energy requirement, diffusion alone cannot support or sustain the process of respiration in animals. And then because diffusion alone can't do this process, you have the requirement of some certain special organs in animals, which are like nostrils you require, then you require a particular systematic passage of air involving different types of tissues and organs, which we saw. We have nostrils, nasal passage, trachea, okay. Then we have lungs. Why all these are required? Because this diffusion alone cannot fulfill our energy requirement. And to overcome this, along with diffusion, animals have the presence of specialized structures and specialized systematic mechanism to fulfill their energy requirements. So this was a comparison between plants and animals. On the basis of that, plants can fulfill their energy requirement by the process of diffusion, whereas in animals, diffusion alone is not sufficient. You require some special structures to be present in animals, and then a particular systematic mechanism, that is how this air would pass and where the CO2 and O2 would get exchanged, everything. So as we have done the comparison between plants and animals, now let's do a similar type of comparison between 2 kinds of animals, that is between terrestrial, okay, this we are doing about animals, so we would say between terrestrial animals and aquatic animals. You all know terrestrial, which are found on land, and aquatic, which are present in water, example fishes, etc. So terrestrial animals and aquatic animals, a question is generally asked, why breathing, okay, among these 2 categories of animals, which category has higher breathing rate and why? So I'll also write the question that among terrestrial and aquatic organisms, which shows a higher breathing rate and then as usual why. answer would not be completed if you say that terrestrial shows a higher breathing rate or aquatic. You have to give the reason why. Whatever group you are choosing, please justify your answer with a suitable reason. So now we'll say that in terrestrial animals and aquatic animals. So firstly, I'll tell you that breathing rate is high in aquatic animals. They have a higher breathing rate as compared to your terrestrial animal group. So we can say that they have a lower breathing rate. Okay, what do you mean by this term, breathing rate? Breathing rate is what? Breathing rate is number of breaths in a given time interval, or you can say number of breaths in 1 minute is your breathing rate. So breathing rate would be number of breaths in a given time interval. So here higher and lower breathing rate means higher means in a given time. Let's say you are given with 1 minute. Then in 1 minute aquatic animals will breathe many times compared to these terrestrial group of animals. And why so? Now let's see. What is the reason for their lower breathing rate and higher breathing rate? Because you know in terrestrial animals you have high amount of oxygen easily available in gaseous form in environment. So for terrestrial organisms, whatever amount of oxygen they need, they have more amount of oxygen everywhere surrounding them. But compared to aquatic animals, you all know that these have special features, that is gills and all, and these take the oxygen which is dissolved in the water. So because they undergo breathing, they use dissolved oxygen present in water for breathing, and because they use dissolved oxygen for breathing, the amount of dissolved oxygen, okay, DO means I am writing in short dissolved oxygen. So the amount of dissolved oxygen is less compared to atmospheric oxygen. Atmospheric means this oxygen present in air. So compared to the atmospheric oxygen. And as we say that these have a higher breathing rate because the amount of dissolved oxygen present in water is very less, so they require to breathe many times to get the required amount of oxygen and do their energy or fulfill their energy requirement. And hence I hope that this concept is also clear to you. We first discussed between plants and animals, and then we saw about terrestrial animals and aquatic animals. And this is again, Mark, it is a very important question, that which group of animals, terrestrial and aquatic, shows a higher breathing rate. Then you also have to justify the reason. So the reason is clear in front of you, that because they use dissolved oxygen, and amount of dissolved oxygen present in water is less compared to the oxygen which is available in the air on the land. So because of this, to fulfill their, you can also include that after this you can write, to fulfill their energy requirement, they need to breathe in a number of times, or they need to breathe many times to fulfill energy requirement. So this would be your answer. I hope this is clear. So this was all I think about respiration and breathing, everything. We have done nutrition, types of nutrition, then we saw nutrition in humans, that is digestion, nutrition in plants, which was the process of photosynthesis. Every life process you have to study in plant and animals, and you are given with different life processes, of course. So nutrition we have done, then we have done breathing, respiration in plants and animals. Okay, plants also I have told you that through stomata the gaseous exchange takes place. Now one more thing which I just remembered now is we saw the passage of air, And I told you that air enters from the, if you remember that diagram, if you don't remember, you can see in your books the diagram of respiration. So we saw that. I also made a flow chart, that is, air first passes through the nostrils, then you have trachea, then trachea divides into bronchi, these bronchi divide inside the lungs into bronchioles, okay, and then these fine bronchioles, on their end bag-like structure is present which is called alveoli. And we said that alveoli is the important part where gaseous exchange, that is exchange between oxygen and CO2 takes place. And then it is mentioned in your books that alveoli is lined with blood vessels. So let's take an account of this alveoli also. Let's suppose if I draw a large structure, this structure I would be observing for alveoli. Okay, so on the outer membrane of alveoli, this is your alveoli, and here you have presence of blood vessels. On the boundary or outer region of alveoli, here you have a network of blood vessels present. Now you know that if we are discussing about inhalation, okay, inhalation means oxygen would be taken in and this oxygen will hence reach alveoli. So if we are talking about the process of inhalation, then your oxygen reaches here inside the alveoli. And now these blood vessels, what do? They take, these are a network of blood vessels. You know blood is responsible for transport of gases also. So these blood vessels will carry waste, that is gaseous waste is CO2, carbon dioxide, from every cell of your body. And from every cell of the body, carbon dioxide, which is your gaseous waste, it is being collected, and now these blood vessels, they contain carbon dioxide in them, that is blood mixed with carbon dioxide. Now what happens? You did inhalation, that means oxygen reached the alveoli, and this alveoli I have drawn in an enlarged view. So you have oxygen inside the alveoli, and these blood vessels have brought carbon dioxide from every cell of your body. So these contain carbon dioxide. Now with the help of diffusion process, these oxygen, because the concentration of oxygen is high inside the alveoli compared to blood vessels, so this oxygen will move to the blood vessels. And similarly, diffusion is movement of gases from high to lower concentration. Carbon dioxide is high in these blood vessels and lower in alveoli or absent in alveoli. So this carbon dioxide will move to the inside of alveoli, and as a result, when these blood vessels will release carbon dioxide, this carbon dioxide will be exhaled out from the lungs. Now this alveoli will contain carbon dioxide which will be exhaled out from your lung cavity or respiratory tract, and this oxygen which is transferred to the blood vessels or to the blood, now these blood vessels will transfer the oxygen to each and every cell of the body. So this is how the process of gaseous exchange occurs, okay. I wanted to tell you this gaseous exchange, so I told you in a brief. And I hope it is now clear that how the process of gaseous exchange occurs and how these oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged and then they are released out, how they are intaken, everything we have done now. So this was whole account of finally respiration and breathing. Now we are starting with the next, that is transportation. Now transportation process we have to study in plants and animals as usual we did for the last two processes which we discussed, nutrition and respiration. So now comes transportation. What is the significance or importance, or why we need this process of transportation? Yes, we need transportation because our body requires to transport substances across it, okay, because we say that in oxygen, where did we get oxygen? In the blood surrounding the alveoli. So now this oxygenated blood means blood mixed with oxygen. This blood needs to be transported to every part of the body. This blood is present in your lungs or in your alveoli, and now this needs to be transported to each and every cell. So how this transportation would be possible if we do not have such systems, that is transportation system. It would not be possible. Then you also require that every cell undergoes respiration, nutrition, everything, and then the cell also produces harmful waste. So our body requires that these waste, nitrogenous waste or gaseous waste substances should be collected from the cells, and then they should be transported from where these waste can be excreted out, that is they should be transported to the kidneys and the excretory system. So everything, we need the things to be transported from one region of the body to the other, and we also need to control or take out, remove the waste from all the body parts. So all these are done under the topic of transportation. So if we say, why do we require transportation? Transportation, this system helps in transport of, you can say, nutrients, amino acids, sugars, different gases, then you have nitrogenous wastes, and many more things. Okay, any other harmful poisonous substance, everything, that is all the useful substance and the waste substance need to be transported from one body part to another body part for removal or for absorption of these useful substance wherever they are required. Everything we deal with in transportation process. Now we will be starting first with transportation in humans or animals, you can say. So transportation in humans, we will be starting with and you can see that most of the substances, they move from one organ to other or one cell to another in the form of dissolved form present in blood. Okay, so then we are saying that because this transport occurs through the blood or along the blood which flows in the entire body of organism. So this transportation in humans is also referred, that what we have to study, this system is actually the blood circulatory system of humans. So transportation in humans, actually we are studying about circulatory system of humans now. So you know, in the circulatory system of humans, the most important organelle which is involved is the heart. So the most important organelle required for circulation or transportation in human beings is your heart. Now seeing some characteristic features of the heart. So it is a muscular organ. Muscular means it is made up of muscles. So heart is a muscular organ. Okay, then heart has thin walls and thick walls also. So we will not go in detail that which walls of heart are thin and where the heart has thick walls, why do it has so. Then we say that the next important which you want to study is the blood. And we already did that. Blood is, you know, blood is what? It is a fluid connective tissue. So in circulatory system, we will be dealing with the heart, then we will be dealing with the blood, that is the fluid connective tissue which is pumped through the heart. So blood is your fluid connective tissue. And this blood contains two parts. You can say you have two parts of blood. One is the liquid part of blood, which is called plasma. And the next one are your blood cells or blood corpuscles. And these are of three kinds, that is RBCs, WBCs and platelets. So this is the composition of blood. Liquid part is approximately 85%, and then the remaining percentage of volume is occupied by different types of cells present in your blood. And you know, RBC, they are red because they carry hemoglobin in them. WBC are called soldiers of the body because they help to fight against infections, and these platelets, they help in clotting of blood. So this was the account. Now we'll be dealing with heart in detail. So you can see the diagram of heart given in your books. Heart in humans, it is a 4-chambered organ, okay? That means heart contains 4 chambers. And talking about the rough sketch, if you draw the rough sketch of heart, then you can label the 4 chambers. That is, this one would be your right auricle or right atrium. This one would be right ventricle. The above 2 chambers, okay, human heart we are discussing. So we said that it is made up of 4 chambers. So it is a 4-chambered structure. Then the next point would be the upper 2 chambers are called as auricles or atrium. Atrium, or you can also call them as auricles. Then what you have as next is the lower chambers. This and these are the 2 lower chambers of human heart. So the lower chambers are called ventricles. So these are the name given to the upper and lower chambers. Upper one are known as atrium or auricles, and the lower chambers are called as ventricles. This is a rough sketch of heart. Okay, the exact diagram is given in your CBSE textbooks. Now you call them present, the chambers which are present upper and lower at the right side are called right auricle, right ventricle, and the chambers present at the left side are known as left auricle and left ventricle. And this kind of rough sketch I am drawing to make you understand the concepts, the passage, as we saw the passage of air inside our respiratory tract. Similarly, we'll see that how this blood flows through these different chambers. So this is the rough sketch to make you understand the concept or the passage of blood through the heart. Now we have the lower chambers as ventricles and the upper chambers as atrium or auricles. So next word, now let's study the mechanism of flow of blood. So we are studying flow of blood. So in this what we have is, first of all, the blood from all the different organs, or you can say all the different cells. The blood is collected from all the different organs and cells through vena cava. So vena cavas are responsible for collecting the blood from different body parts, and you have 2 kinds of vena cavas. One is called superior vena cava and the next one is called inferior vena cava. So superior vena cava collects the blood, and this blood is deoxygenated. You can write blood from organs is collected by vena cava, and vena cavas contain deoxygenated blood. It is also referred to as sometime in general sense to be the impure blood, but the exact term is deoxygenated. Deoxygenated means the type of blood which do not contain oxygen in it. That is, it contains different gases, the waste products, carbon dioxide, everything. And this blood is being collected to get it purified or oxygenated in the lungs, and then the purified or the oxygenated blood. Oxygenated means blood mixed with oxygen, blood containing oxygen. Then this deoxygenated blood which is collected from the organs, different cells, they would pass through the heart and lungs, and then it would get oxygenated or purified, and then this blood, oxygenated blood, would again be returned to the organs. So blood from the organs is collected by vena cava, and this blood is called deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood means it lacks oxygen, or you can say it contains carbon dioxide and other waste materials, okay, taken or absorbed from these different cells or organs. Then we were on the point that superior and inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava collects the blood from upper half of your body, and inferior collects the blood from the lower half of body. So superior vena cava, we have two kinds of vena cava. This vena cava, that is your blood vessel, collects the blood from upper half of the body, and inferior vena cava collects blood from organs present in lower half of body. So these are the functions of these vena cava, and these vena cavas are bringing which kind of blood? They are bringing deoxygenated blood, which we are abbreviating as DOB, okay? So this is also containing deoxygenated blood. Now this deoxygenated blood is filled up in this right auricle or right atrium. So this right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from these vena cavas. Now when this right auricle gets somewhat filled up with blood, that is when 70% filling occurs of this right auricle, then you have a certain muscular gate here, okay? The name is not mentioned, so we'll call it as a valve. And because when right atrium gets filled up with the blood, this blood forces this valve, that is in the form of a gate. So the blood pushes this muscular wall to get opened, and as a result, when deoxygenated blood fills in this right auricle, then it creates a pressure on the valve, and hence the valve gets opened, and all this deoxygenated blood flows to your right ventricle. So now you have the deoxygenated blood flowing into the right ventricle, and because this exhibits pressure, this right auricle undergoes contraction. Whenever it gets filled up with blood up to 70%, then it undergoes contraction, and as a result of contraction, the blood applies force on this valve, and this valves open up to flow all the blood downwards into right ventricle. After the blood flows into right ventricle, this contracted right auricle, okay, which was in contracted state, it again relaxes. So remember, every chamber of the heart would show rhythmic contraction and relaxation. Once the chamber would contract, then after performing the function, that is whenever it gets empty, then it would again undergo to its initial state, that is it would undergo relaxation. So now this right ventricle gets filled with the blood, that is your deoxygenated blood. So now the remaining flow of the blood or the passage of blood we will be doing in the next class, but we have started the circulatory system, and please go through the terminologies used in the human heart. That is, it is a muscular organ, it contains 4 chambers, everything, whichever introduction we have done, and then we will continue this flow of blood in the next video session. So thank you for joining the class today. If you have any kind of doubt, you can ask us anytime. Thank you.